the original intent that was at least superficially communicated, let's put it that way, was that banking was something to serve the people. It was there to facilitate these short-term agreements between people. The idea here is that it entered the picture as a way to serve the people. But you can see when that ideal of serving the people has been turned upside down.
What's it take to start a business bank account in a socialist country? In this case, it's Ecuador. Here it is. Copy of your tax ID number, the legal representative of the company, copy of ID of the legal representative, sales tax payment declarations for the last 6 months, income tax returns for the last 3 years, profit and loss sheet or accounting records for the last 3 years. 3 commercial references. Guys, this is just for a bank account. You'd think you're asking for a loan. 3 months worth of their sales receipts where you've been making sales. So they want copies of any vehicles the business owned, their registration and license plate numbers, and any vehicle sales or property tax that they're all up and current. Got to fill out the application and sign. Autorización de Buro de Crédito. Credit Bureau authorization. So you got to pass some kind of a credit check.
Well, bank accounts are being shut down. A lot of people do go abroad for the freedom. If someone is retirement age, generally they go overseas to enjoy a certain lifestyle, maybe more sunshine, lower cost, all the things that, all the promises that are made, minus all the things they don't tell you. And so one of the big things, if you're not retirement age, which when we went, we were barely 50, but we were a very young 50. I mean, neither one of us looked our age, and I don't know. I don't know what someone thinks when they think 50, but to a 20-year-old that probably sounds old, but it didn't. If you look at videos of us like in Salinas back, in 2012 and such, we were springy 50s, okay? But it doesn't matter because the freedom idea was always at the forefront of our thinking, even during our 20s, and that's, as I've mentioned in some of my other videos, why I abandoned. I did have a fire program. I had fire plans. Oh, the wind's kicking up. All right, so I've got to protect against the wind here so you can hear me. But fire, financial independence, retire early. It's a movement kind of thing where financial independence has not. It's always been there. I mean, even Benjamin Franklin, even before Benjamin. Ancient scriptures talk about financial independence. Abraham was financially independent. All those guys, they were all financially independent, and yet they were producers. They produced something. They were in an agrarian society, agrarian culture, and that's what they produced. But they had the benefits of people that are financial independence. They had freedom. That was my point. And they, with their freedom, went family values. They had family. It's not that they were without problems. I mean, all families and all people's relationships have their challenges, and that's just part of life. But we go abroad for freedom, and we want to place ourselves in situations where our freedom is not restricted, and that's what brings me to the title of the video. And part of that is what we do with banking and buying and selling. And one of the basic freedoms in life is the ability to enter into agreements. Because that's what buying and selling is. It's a short-term agreement. I agree to sell you this box of oranges for $10 and you agree to pay it. That's an agreement. And that's what buying and selling is. It's people coming together and making an agreement that's mutually beneficial. But when third parties enter into the picture, and originally, when you go back to now, you can take this conversation into so many rabbit holes, but I'm going to stay focused here just to say that the original intent that was at least superficially communicated, let's put it that way, was that banking was something to serve the people. It was there to facilitate these short-term agreements between people. It was there to facilitate their ability, because people could carry around whatever it is that they used to buy and sell with. It could have been, a pound of salt or 10 pounds of salt, or lots of silver coins and gold, or maybe they had cows. Enter banking. Someone came in with this great idea. Hey, look, we'll just hold your stuff and give you these notes, and you can just swap these notes, right? So, but without going back too far back into the history of banking, the idea here is that it entered the picture as a way to serve the people. But you can see when that ideal of serving the people has been turned upside down. We can all see that. We all know it. Some of us just sweep it under the rug and don't want to talk about it, or because it's like, well, what do I do about it? It's like, I remember years ago a payment processor telling me, they basically threatened me that if I didn't, toe the line, they were going to ban me for life. Can you imagine that? A third party being able to say to you, we're not going to allow you to freely enter into private short-term or long-term agreements with whoever you want, whenever you want. Obviously for things that are moral, ethical. We're not talking about breaking the law here. We're not talking about buying and selling things that are illegal. We're talking about like legal, moral, ethical, and this kind of thing. So, but can you imagine? And so a lot of us are, we have this promise that, well, we can go abroad and exit this system where we're subject to individually and just restricted by this system. And so we can take this idea and go abroad and be free to choose, what third parties we're going to allow. It's like we're reversing the thing that, we're taking it back to the original where these third parties serve you, not you serve them. That's what a lot of people are attempting to do when they go abroad. But along comes 2020, and I imagine that it started before 2020. I don't imagine it. It actually started before 2020, because I know that we've been abroad for 12 years. There have just been so many changes where this ideal has flip-flopped and has gone from serving the people to, well, what else do you want to call it? Lording over the people. That's exactly what it is. It's like, through the years, I've run into entrepreneurs that, I've had multiple businesses, and once in a while, one of them will say, yeah, I bought a bank. This other book I was reading, he had a bank back in the 80s. This other guy here in the 2000, he bought a bank. And you're like, oh yeah, it's just another business as usual. But no, banks have a very special and specific purpose. As I said, they can, if we give it to them, they have the power to not just restrict your freedom, but literally starve you, okay? And I learned this as a young man. I had a couple of jobs out of high school, but I learned really quick that, I say really quick, I was fired only from a dozen places. That's not that quick, but I learned. I think I need to be out on my own and do make my own job. But what I'm saying, quick, I learned it at a young age. And so I've always made my own work one way or another. And I learned, one of the lessons that you learn is that the difference between when you have a job, you are 100% dependent on one source of income. And some people say that people take a job because of the security of the paycheck. But what I learned is that it's the complete opposite. You have 100% less security, because now you're beholden to that employer, and they have the power to remove 100% of your production and your earnings, because you're tied to them whether they fire you or not. So And I mean, in a buzzing economy with super low unemployment, people kind of sweep that under the rug. But that's really what you're doing, is you're really putting yourself 100% at risk. And that's exactly what we do when we bank in one jurisdiction, and so I'm saying this to say that it's important to hold this thought, be cognizant of the risk to freedom that we put our lives in when we are dependent on one source for our sustenance. And when I say something like that, people might think, well, my sustenance, but really any third party that enters that picture that has the power to cut your ability to have the freedom to engage in contracts, which is what buying and selling is, in order to have your ability to live, then they have that power. And that's exactly what's happening. And it has been happening in a variety of different countries, but specifically in Europe, bank accounts are getting shut down. In other words, banks are, again, they're flipping, where to the point, a lot of businesses, and not just banks, and you know this also about, because you have good government and bad government, and so you have some governments, and when they go to dictatorship, that's one of the things that you can't do, is freely buy and sell or freely associate, and that's what constitutions are for, is to protect the people in law against losing these freedoms, which are unalienable to our existence because they come from our Creator. And so, in England, but it could be any country, you've got investment accounts that are getting shut down, bank accounts that are getting shut down, and these are entities that are saying, well, no, we're not going to allow you to say, move from here to there and still keep your account. Whereas in times past, you were told, well, you can have an account because it serves your needs, your purposes, and it facilitates your life. But now they've turned this around and are saying, well, no, we're going to tell you how you can live your life because we know that you need our accounts. And so that's what's happening, and it's something that, having been someone that has made his own way since a young man, I'm consciously, continually aware of the risk of being dependent on any one source in order to exist in this wonderful life that has been gifted to us. And let's face it, ancient writings call it evil. It's good and evil. That's what we're talking about, and that's what's happening. People are losing their investment accounts, their bank accounts. It's a sign of the times that we live in, that these institutions that are supposed to be these renegade institutions, because not all institutions are bad, but during a time, it seems, where this kind of evil is spreading, we have to be on our guard, because we see this happening more and more in a lot of places. And so we just have to stay aware and understand how important it is to be able. That's the whole idea behind community. The community is there to foster and facilitate the ability to barter, which is contract with one another and buy and sell for the purposes of avoiding starvation. There are people that say, well, I don't need that because I'm totally self-reliant, and that's fine. You can do that. You can be super self-reliant. There were Israelites that didn't go to Egypt, that remained in the desert, and they were super self-reliant, perhaps with a small group of family, where they tended their sheep and they were shepherds, and they didn't go into Egypt. They were there, and it can be done, but again, I still think they weren't loners. They were still doing it with their family, because anything can happen. If you get hurt or ill and can't tend to your animals, then that right there is going to cause you to starve. So clearly it's not a time to be a loner, and I imagine that it's never really has been a time to be a loner. And I imagine that the times that we have come through in the industrial society has given us the false appearance that being a loner is actually a viable way of doing things. And a lot of us that want to be self-reliant still, especially Americans, still have this because we were born into it and we were raised into it. That's the way Americanism is, individualism. It was, you know, established and drummed into our heads, you know, on how much you can do, and you can. But we're starting to see now more and more, even when we become super self-reliant and can thumb our noses to the potential of certain institutions becoming renegade and turning on us, we would still be better off with people that have love and goodwill towards one another in order to basically survive and thrive what is happening and what is coming in this world. All right, I hope you got something out of that. Thanks for coming to the video, and have a wonderful day.